You start your morning with hope for your day. Maybe you'll have more energy and be able to get more done than the previous day. But by lunchtime, you feel exhausted already and you haven't made any progress. At that point, you're back to lying on the couch or getting back into bed. Most of us with long COVID have lived through many days like this. It can take a huge toll on our mental health. We know that long COVID isn't a psychological disorder, but taking care of your psychological health in your recovery journey is crucial. One of the first things that we face in our experience with long COVID is low mood. It's an awful lot to adjust to, the loss of functioning, the disability, the symptoms, the not being able to work. I want to acknowledge first and foremost that it is very common to feel incredibly hopeless, and within that context to have thoughts of suicide or ending your own life. At that moment, that can be very scary because it's not nice to have those thoughts, and most of us haven't had them before. We don't know what to do if we're experiencing that. Here is something that you can do in the moment if you are experiencing that right now, or if you have recently and maybe it comes up again. Emotional grounding. And I make that distinction because there are lots of other types of grounding, but emotional grounding involves taking a look around and seeing what you can do to ground yourself in that moment. So, for example, looking at a piece of art or a photograph and noticing the details. You can open up a magazine if you can make it to the window and look out, or maybe you're even just opening up your phone and looking for some nice images of nature. Take that moment just to immerse yourself in that scene and emotionally ground yourself. The next step in our psychological health with long COVID is going to be working on calming our nervous system. We do the nervous system work first because, yes, feeling our feelings is very important, but if we don't have the resources to feel them supported, we can be sent right back into a crash or that kind of shutdown state. I went through this cycle so many times before I discovered the nervous system work. Everybody was telling me, yes, Sally, you got to move your feelings. You can't have them stuck in your body. And that's definitely true, but it can be incredibly overwhelming to have that experience. So where do you start with calming your nervous system? There isn't one correct answer, which is why I put everything that I know into a book. But one technique that you can use is a different kind of grounding, which is polyvagal grounding. So this is thinking about our body, not our emotions, and focusing on finding all of the little things that your body needs to feel comfortable in that moment. For example, and you may have heard me share this before, sitting here talking to you right now, I'm sitting in a chair that I've picked out that my body really likes. It supports my shoulders, it supports my hips, but I also have a nice little small, I think it's 5-pound weighted blanket on my knees that are just kind of cueing my body for safety. And I also have a rolled up towel right in a particular spot in the middle of my back, which also feels wonderful for my body. This is essentially cueing our body for safety. So we have the little supports, and this is our way of saying to the body, I value you, I'm here, I'm paying attention. Then when you've done the nervous system work, then you can allow yourself to start feeling your feelings. You will have the resources in case your body starts to get overwhelmed and go into shutdown so that you can support it. If we don't feel our feelings, they do build up in our body and can manifest in all sorts of ways. And lots of people in the mind-body world are talking about this. One really common one is pain. So it's really important to move the feelings through our body and not store them up so that they come out in uncomfortable ways. As we allow the feelings to move through our body, this can feel uncomfortable. And especially if you've been working your whole life to suppress your feelings, if we let them all out at once, we can overwhelm our body and go into that shutdown or crash. This is me giving you permission that you can drip your feelings out. One word we use in polyvagal theory is titrate. So we're not opening the floodgates, letting all the water out all at once, which washes everything away, good and bad. We are just dipping in and out. You allow yourself to feel a little bit of a feeling. If that gets overwhelming, then you go back to your polyvagal strategies, cue your body for safety, maybe do some orienting, maybe do some rocking, and then come back to it at another time when you feel like your body is ready again. Really important to do the nervous system work first, and then you can build on that as you feel your feelings. And the more time that you've spent being in tune with your body, the easier that it becomes. If a feeling is too overwhelming, take a step back, work on the polyvagal grounding that we mentioned earlier, and then come back to it. And the most important thing throughout this whole process is listening to your body. No matter what somebody else tells you, if your body is saying this is not the right time, you need to honor that. So once your nervous system is doing better and you are spending more time in rest and digest, the next stage of our psychological health is going to be kind of capitalizing on that. One word that a lot of people in the polyvagal world use for this next stage is aliveness. That we don't just go from existing day to day, that we actually start to think about thriving again. Within that category, something that many of us are talking about, finding your purpose, whether or not it is with regard to job or career or work, especially when we've been sick for a long time and we have just been lying on the couch for days and days and weeks and months. Finding a reason to exist again is really important. And the wonderful thing about being more in rest and digest is that we have access to fabulous things like gratitude, self-acceptance, compassion, and those can really be helpful in that aliveness process. Thinking about finding a purposeful activity, it doesn't have to be the classic, oh, I want to help other people. It doesn't have to be charity work or volunteering. It can also be spending intentional time with family or getting back into exercise, but in an intentional way. Most of us were very driven professionals who spent a lot of time in our former lives achieving success just for the sake of it. Now it's really important to find activities that help you do things for the sake of you and your health, putting ourselves first again. One of the other most important things that we can do at this stage is connecting with people. When we're in rest and digest, it's all about social connection. When we've been sick with long COVID, most of us have been very isolated for a long time, and beginning to make those social connections again is really important. Of course, we want to do that in a COVID-safe way so that we don't get reinfected. I have another great video that talks about how to prevent reinfection. If you want to watch that video, it will be up here. I've personally been working on building back social connection through travel. You may have seen me talking about traveling with long COVID. I have been connecting with communities of people who like to travel, none of whom have long COVID. In this process of thinking about making social connection again, and the fact that we may have dramatically reduced our previous social circle because people didn't understand about our illness. Very frequently, including myself, people are saying, why don't you find other people who have long COVID? It doesn't necessarily have to be that. We can also be thinking about things that we love to do. Things that we used to do and haven't done, or things that we didn't realize that we loved and haven't done in a very long time. Something that I rediscovered this summer when I was on a cruise to Norway is that I love the ocean and boats and sailing. And so next summer I plan on connecting with other people who like to do that. Our connections as people help a great deal in our lives and influence our well-being. Especially given what we've been through, it is really important to build connections to consolidate that being in a rest and digest state. Your emotional well-being is so important, and even though long COVID is not a psychological illness, it's a really huge part of our recovery to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and our mental health. If you want to learn more about polyvagal strategies for recovering from long COVID, click the link below and we'll talk soon.